Hello guys. Today I'm just going to be starting a new project called Tranche Manager. Now, as you may know, I am a little bit, or I'm quite into investing by now, but it's really just finance in general. I've been looking at economics for a while, mainly just to plan ahead, just to be make sure I'm not poor in the future. So I actually sat down for a full 5 hours and just in a notebook wrote down a bunch of um, scratch formulas to see, all right, how much do I need to save? What percentage? How is that percentage determined? And what that percentage would go to savings, this other percentage would go to this, and then maybe those savings are divided into three groups, like dry powder, which is cash. One third is dry powder. The other third is securities such as bonds, right? And then other securities like a common stock and ETFs. Um, but yeah, and honestly, I understand why the middle class or lack thereof is so angry, because cost of living is like $60,000 and average wage in America is like 70,000. That leaves almost no wiggle room because that's not accounting for the fact that you need to buy a house, which most people just rent. So $60,000 for rent. Sorry, not $60,000. So those $60,000 includes rent, and that's also assuming you don't go to college, um, which would mean lower pay. But if you do go to college, then you have debt, and then it's hard to pay that. So yeah, point is, I've been getting into economics. A lot of stuff is very worrying, but that's why I'm getting into it because I need to plan ahead. I don't want to be poor. So, anyways, um, so today I'm making an app called Tranche Manager. It's going to be made with Maven, Java SDK 17, and it's going to be called Tranche Manager. And right here for the organization, you know what? I'm thinking the name CoTranche seems pretty good. All right, let's finish. And it loads up our project. Now, first thing is create the package. Or wait, sorry. com.cotranche.loraxio, and then we'll just do tranche manager right there. Can name it tranche manager. Right, so that's going to be the parent package. And sorry, you cannot see this very well. I can't really fix that, but okay. So now, let's create a couple of classes first, actually. Right, so let's do hub, or sorry, app, and yeah, so then we're gonna have the actual application package, right? And in the application package, we are just going to have a Java class called launcher. Okay, so now that I've finally done that, let's create a, oh, and by the way, this is all going to be on GitHub, so yeah, no need to write this down. So this is not going to be private. Repository name, Tranche Manager. Let's share it. All right. Everything checks out. All right. So now that we've created the launcher, let's actually make the main class. Right, so essentially this is going to be a terminal program, right, because it's really meant for finance, and I kind of dig the old-fashioned 80s style of, terminal commands for doing math and stuff. Like, I don't need a GUI app that's going to take too long. So what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna talk to the machine like they did in the old days. So we're gonna do some terminal printing. So I'm gonna say, welcome to Tranche Manager, and we can say made by Tranche, right? And then we can just take some, whoops, what just happened? Can take some of this. Alright, and now we're going to get into the actual programs, the program talking. So we're going to say guidance, the main person is going to be guidance, or you know what, should be called hub, right? We can say, welcome to the hub, please enter the number corresponding to the desired action. Is that, I think that should be fine. To the desired, yeah. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. So let me just zoom in so that you guys can see this. Alright, so then let's create a new class called hub. And this whole thing's going to be a static thing, so yeah. Okay, so in the hub, we are just going to be directed to the main menu. Menu. And let's just do this. Hub.menu, right? Okay, so after we say this, let's create let's print out some more dashes, and we'll do 6 formulas for today. All right, so I'm just going to copy over the entry command right here. Right, I already wrote that out, and we're just going to do string user input equals to a new scanner system.in.next. So that's going to take the next line, and we're going to do a catch statement, number format exception. That's just going to make it so that we can return back to the menu if we type in anything invalid. So we can say if user input dot equals, oops, dot I can't type for my life, e/x. So right here this says type e/x to exit. So if we type e/x, right, then we are just going to say shutting down, or let's do program shutting down, and then we're just going to print out, or not print, we are going to exit with a status of 0, right? And then if we don't say that, that means we've typed in an incorrect command argument, and we're going to say hub invalid argument, and then we're just going to go back to the menu, right? So now to put in what is inside of the try catch, that's going to be a method called perform action. Alright, so this perform action is just going to manage what number we typed in, and then it's just going to direct us to the correct to the correct, what do you call it, part of the program, I guess. So first, let's type in our our spacer, right? And then we are going to switch between the IDs. So the ID is an integer, and it's referring to these right here. These IDs right here. And these IDs correspond to the following action that we want to do. That's what it said here in the launcher. Please enter the number corresponding to the desired action. So we're going to enter in 1 if we want to do a compound interest equation. Alright, and then as you can do system.exit. So before I forget, let's do perform action, and then we'll just do user input. Or first we're going to do integer.parseInt, and then we're going to put in the user input, right? So now we're going to use the switch statement, and I am just going to pause the video and paste it in. Alright, so now that we've got that, we have a couple of methods, and let's create a new package called actions, or I feel like, okay, we can rename this later. You know what? Let's rename this tranches. What just happened? Tranches. Oop. Oh, whoops, I refactored it by accident. Alright, refactor. What the hell is happening? This should be in here. There we go. Tranche. And okay, so you know what? Let's create a new Java class, and this is going to be called Tranche Action Manager. Action Manager, right? Or actually, should be just actions, because it's not really going to manage the actions. It's not going to direct us to anything because we're already doing this here. Instead, we're just going to store the actions in here, right? And they're all fairly simple things. And we'll have a hierarchy for the more complicated things. So we can just import that. Okay, so now let's actually create the methods, right? And that's going to be, of course, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm just going to leave them as that name, just because it's easier to refer to in terms of organization, because I know exactly where they are, because they're going to be organized numerically. But first, we're going to make a private static final scanner called user inputs, because that's just going to be a universal scanner for all of these base actions, which in this case base actions are just like formulas, just simple formulas, right? Okay, so now let's create method 0. Okay, so let's check what method 0 was. 0 is PE ratio. So if you don't know, the PE ratio is the price over earnings. Alright, so this is going to be price over earnings. So now then I want to do a trailing PE ratio as well. So I'll do that. That'll be 1, right? I'm going to have to change some of this. Okay, so in 0, what I will do, refactor, rename, this should say app. There we go. Okay, so in 0, we're going to have two variables, because it's share price over earnings per share, or the last EPS. Right, double EPS. Everything is going to be in doubles, by the way. It's just easier. And here we're just going to do PE ratio, enter share price, and then we're just going to do share price equals to user input.next double. Next, we're going to do same speaker, but this time he's going to say enter EPS, and then we're going to do EPS equals to user input.next double. There we go. And now we're just going to print out the PE ratio, which is P/E ratio. That's the speaker. And we're just going to say the PE ratio is share price divided by EPS, right? And then we're just going to go back to the menu. Okay, so now let's do the trailing EPS. All right. So, whoops. First of all, let's go to the hub. So 1 is currently compound interest. Let's just change these. Shoot. 5, 6. There we go. And then here, we can insert hub 1, and that's going to be trailing P/E ratio. Alright, so that's trailing PE ratio. That's going to be number 1. And the trailing PE ratio is essentially, so the PE ratio is price over earnings per share. Share price over earnings per share. Now, that EPS, the earnings per share, is only accounting for the last EPS. But sometimes the EPS of a certain stock is volatile. So the trailing PE ratio allows us to average out the EPS over the past quarter, 4 quarters of the past year. And yeah, so that means, for example, let's just use a company as an example. What's a company? HQP or HPQ, or you know what, BAC EPS, right? And we can look at their earnings calls. You can see they have had 4 earnings calls, right? That's what Google Finance reports, the last 4 earnings calls. And you can see right here, Q4, they reported 0.82 in EPS for Q4, FY21 Q4. And then for FY21 Q3, they reported 0.85, 1.03 for FY21 Q2, and 0.86 for Q1. So we're just going to take the average. And we can actually see the trailing PE ratio formula, or the trailing price looks at a company's share price in the market relative to its past year's earnings per share. So past years, that's referring to all 4 quarters. And that's the frequency at which most companies report their EPS during their earnings calls. So yeah, so that's a definition if you don't know what it is, but yeah. Alright. So, first, let's do share price right, just like before. And honestly, we can just put this in its own, in one line, share price, and then we can do Q1 EPS I don't know what the proper whatever, Q2 EPS, Q3 EPS, Q4 EPS. And first we're going to ask for the share price. So it's going to be trailing P/E ratio is talking, enter share price, and let's just make this all lowercase. Let's be constant, shall we? Enter. I don't know. I feel like old computers had everything in lowercase, so I just kind of want to do that. All right. So this is enter share price, and we're just going to do share price equals to user input dot next double. Now we're going to say enter Q1, enter Q1 EPS. And we're going to do Q1 EPS equals to user input dot next double. And let's just copy and paste this 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. Q2, Q2, or Q3, and Q4. So that's first, second, and third, fourth quarter. It's going to be 2, quarter 3, whoops, quarter 4. And now we're going to want to print out the actual trailing PE ratio. So let's just paste this there, delete this, and we can say trailing P/E ratio is, and then we're going to have to add the value. So this is share price over earnings, right? So we can do share price divided by, and in parentheses, we're going to want to take the average, which is Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 plus Q4, right? And all of this, whoops, all of this is going to be divided by 4, because that's how you take the average, right? And then we're just going to do hub.menu, return to the menu. Alright, so why don't we start testing this out? You guys have waited long enough. Alright, so it's all loaded up. Welcome to Tranche Manager, made by Tranche. Okay, so the hub says, welcome to the hub, please enter the number corresponding to the desired action. Alright, so, you know what? Yeah, never mind. Wait. Sorry. How do I... What just happened? 1 second, run. Okay, so then it's going to give me all the options. So far, we've only put in 0 and 1. So let's type in E/X. You can see it shuts down, right? So let's run it again. And this time we're going to do the PE ratio. So let's get an actual PE ratio, right, of Bank of America. So their last report, FY22 Q1, that reported 0.82 for their EPS in USD. So 0.82. So that's going to be the EPS. And then we're going to want the actual BSA stock and that's 39.67. So that's 39.67, and then EPS is 0.82. So you can see right here, it gave me the PE ratio, which is 48, which is pretty overvalued. Now, what most people use, I believe, is the trailing PE ratio. So we're just going to use one. So it's going to say enter share price, and we can check that we entered in the correct number because it'll tell us which one we're doing right here. Enter share price, 39.67, and enter the Q1 EPS. So right here, the first quarter. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, wait, sorry. How many do we have right here? One. So we're gonna do from the past year, and right here. Oh, this is upcoming. Okay, I see. So we're just gonna need these four, right? Okay, so quarter one, FY21, quarter one, 0.86, right? 0.86. And why don't we just do that? Okay. 0.86, that's quarter one. Quarter two, 1.03. 1.03. For quarter three, 0.85. And quarter four is 0.82. Alright, so the trailing PE ratio was 44.5. Okay, still pretty shitty. Damn, this market's fairly overvalued. Okay, so then we have the price to book ratio, which is what I think is better. Because shares can be diluted. So like share prices can be diluted. By that I mean they can be split, they can be merged, and so in reality it doesn't really matter what the company's share is because they can just change that, right? They can split it 1 to 4, 4 to 1, right? Or merge it 4 to 1, stuff like that. So, why don't we do price to book ratio next? So this is going to be case 2. And let's just do that. And then right here, we're going to just put in that option to do P/B ratio and price to book ratio. So the book value is more important. I think it's more accurate than the EPS because earnings per share is based off of the earnings, which is fine, but it's also based off of the share price, and the share price doesn't really mean anything because what matters is the percentage, but it's not taking the percentage, it's taking the share price. So we're going to add in this PB ratio, price to book value ratio, which I believe is better. And you can see the formula right here is market price share. Wait, what? Oh. Market price share. Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. So, no, I was right. So, market price share over book value per share. So, essentially, what it's comparing it's looking at. I can't really explain book value very well. It's kind of like the value of the company, but it also isn't. It's like the legalized. It's stated in their like statements and everything. And you know what? Let me just Google this so that you guys can see book value. Book value in stock market. The amount of money that would be paid to shareholders if the company was. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. It's kind of like Okay, so I was a little wrong. No, I was wrong. So, it essentially it means the same thing, right? It as what I said, the true value of the intrinsic value of the company. But that's represented by liquidation um, of all of its liabilities, and not um, whatever I said before. Okay, so yeah, book value. And you can Google book value. So we're going to be using Bank of America as an example for all of these. How long has this recording been going? Half an hour. Wonderful. That is way too long. Okay, so book value, stock price, book value per share. Okay. Okay, yeah. So macro trends is pretty good too. I like them. Okay, so this is going to be P/B ratio. So let's create a brand new method. Public static void 2. And what we're going to do is say we're just going to set up all the variables first, which is share price and book value. And then we're going to say P/B ratio, enter share price. Share price equals to user input dot next double. And then we're going to do P/B price to book ratio. And we're going to say enter book value. Right. Book value is going to be user input dot next double. Right. And then we are going to just divide the two. So we'll do P/B ratio. We'll say P/B ratio is share price divided by the book value. Right. Now that we're done with that, we can do hub.menu. Right. Alright, so let's get on to the third one. Just because I don't want this running over very, 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 very long. It's already pretty long, but whatever. Okay. So 3 is compound interest. Alright, we're getting into the interesting one. So 3 is compound interest. And compound interest has a more complicated formula. We learned this in math this year. Right? And wait, no, this is not right. Yeah, okay, so compound interest is a much more complicated. It's not extremely complicated. Sorry, I'm sounding dramatic. So we're gonna have a couple of variables: double principal, a rate, frequency, and a overall time. And we're just gonna ask for the principal. Right, and then we're just gonna do P equals to user input dot next double. Alright, so now we can just copy this down, I believe, 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. And we can say, please enter rate. Let's change this to R. And then, what would N be called? Compound frequency, I suppose. So that's, I guess N represents number of times per year. And time is enter time in years. So that's T. And now we can print out the actual compound interest final we can say final amount we can do, so the equation is A, which is the end value, end equity, which is A, so then that's A equals to P principal times 1 plus, I think it's rate over frequency, which is N, and rate is R, to the power of frequency times time. So in variable terms, that is A equals to P times 1 plus R over N, and the 1 plus R over N is to the power of NT, right? Okay, so P times math.pow 1 plus R slash N, right? R slash N, and then we'll do NT. Uh-oh. Okay, I think that's right. Yeah, so principal times the math times this to the power of NT. Yes, that's correct. Alright. Sorry about this. Alright, that's good. And let's move on to 4. Public static void 4. Right. Alright, so 4 is percent change. Now we're doing percent change, and there are 3 things we are doing for percent change. So public static void so there are going to be 3 percent change formulas. So let's go to hub. Let's do 4 and 5. So first we're going to find the percentage. Alright, so for percentage we're going to have 2 values. Right, and then we are going to find, and because we're going to have so many percent change, I'm just going to label it PC, and we're going to say find percent. Right, and then just do brackets, and then we're going to say enter value 1, right, and we're going to do val1 equals to user input.next double, and we can just copy this over, and we can say ask for value 2 right here, and then we're going to type in the formula. So we can just delete this, do hub.menu, and right here we can say percent change, and now the formula is value 2 minus val1 divided by val1, right, yes, so it's going to be x2 minus x1 over x1, and then we want to convert it back into percentage, so we're going to do times 100, right? And then we can just add a percent symbol, alright, okay, so good for that. Okay, so for the next one, we are just going to do the same thing, so val, but this time we're finding value 1, so the initial value. So we're going to have the value 2, the percent change, right? And then we're going to say PC find value 1, right? And we're just going to do enter value 2. And we're going to say val2 equals user input.next double. And then we're going to say enter percent change decimal form. And I should probably say that, oh wait, no, never mind. Decimal form. And that's going to be right here. Percent change. And now PC find value 1. And then we're just going to say value 1. And the formula is value 2 over percent change plus 1. And we know that because if we just write out the same formula in here for percent change, which is x2 minus x1 over x1 times 100, and we just isolate x1 on one side, then we get this formula, which is value 2 divided by the percent change in decimal form plus 1. Okay. So we can go back to the menu. 6 is going to be the other way around. We're doing same percent change, but we're finding value 2. Yeah, find value 2. So we can actually just copy all of this, and we can just say value 1. We're finding value 2. Basically, for every 1 I find, I put 2. For every 2 I find, I put 1. Right? Alright. So now we're going to do a new formula, which is, what is it? I believe it's percent change times the value 1 plus val 1, I think. And so we're finding value 2, value 2, value 2, enter value 1. Okay, that's all good. So that seems correct. Let's go into the hub. Let's make a case statement for that, actions.6. Let's just make a method for 7. So now, a formula that I discovered a few days ago. What's next? I believe it. Yes. Compound annual growth rate. So this is the average annual growth rate of a stock, normally, typically over 5 years, right? So it takes a growth rate for all 5 years, and it averages out between each year, right? Just to account for any market volatility or setbacks. For example, the crash of 2021, or sorry, 2020, March 2020, when pandemic hit. Alright, so this formula is a little more complicated than the other ones. Actually, it's not. So we're going to have val 1, val 2, and time. So val 1 is the initial value, value 2 is the end value, and then we're going to have t for time. So total amount of time that we're averaging out, right? So we're going to do system.out.println. Because this name is so long, we're just going to call it CAGR, right? And we're going to say enter initial value val1 equals to user input.next double. And we can just copy this, say final, and say val2. And now we're just going to want to enter the time in years. So right here, we can just say enter time in years. Just put t. And then we can say, now we just have to print out the average growth rate. Mean annual growth rate. And the formula, can take a look right here. CA CAG or formula, compound annual growth rate, which is final over final over initial to the power of 1 over t minus 1, right? So that's going to be math.pow, so power, so we're going to do val2 over val2 over val1, and that's going to go to the power of 1 over t, and then that is going to be minus 1, and that entire thing is going to be times 100 to convert into percentage, right? We'll just say compound annual growth rate right there. Alright, and then we go back to the menu. So if we go to here, I believe that's it. That is a lot of coding for one set. No, it's not that much coding. Just kidding. But we got through everything I wanted to do in a pretty timely manner for video. I would have been able to do all of this in like 20 minutes if I weren't filming it. Probably like 15 actually, but I go like 20 times slower when I'm talking. And when I'm recording a video, I know I say this a lot, but I'm a lot slower. But that's also because when I'm not recording, I'm usually copy and pasting a lot of my old code. But when I'm recording, I want to show that I actually know what I'm talking about and that I actually know what I'm coding. So I take the long way and actually code it out from memory or like refer to stuff because I want to show you my usual process. But yeah. Okay, you know what? Let's do this compound annual growth rate. You know what? No, CAGR's fine. Okay, let's test it out. T minus 47. Actually, it's T plus 47, but whatever. So this would be a full window. So if we do e/x, that's going to shut down the program. Let's run it. Let's do compound annual growth rate. So the initial value. Why don't we take the let's do Bank of America. Actually, you know what? Let's do SPY. So we'll take the compound annual growth rate for 5 years. Because that's going to be the most relevant. So that starts at 234.59, 234.59, 234.59. That's in dollars. Final is 447.57. So 447.57. That is, of course, over 5 years. Says compound annual growth rate is 13%. That's about right, because I know it. The Dow goes. I think that the Dow is pretty much the same. It's around 15 or around like 12. Okay, so now let's do some of the percent change. Just to prove that this works. So we'll do value 1 is 20 and value 2 is 40. Right? That should do 100%, right? Yep, 100% change. You can see it brings us back to the hub, and you can see if I type something invalid, it just says invalid argument and brings us back to the hub, right? Okay, so I guess we could do 5 just to make sure everything's right. So percent change, so, we're finding value 1. So if we start off with 100, and we're finding value 1, so we go 100%, which is 1, in decimal form, which is 1.00. So I'm just going to put 1. That means that 100% increase to $100 should be 50, so it should say 50. Alright, so 50 right here. Alright, let's try a negative number actually, so for 4, so we're going to find the percent of, so we're going to go 50, and then we're going to go negative. We're going to go 25, so it's going to go down 50%. You can see what it says, negative 50%. Alright, so value 6, action 6, which is percent change finding value 2. So we're going to say we start off with $100, right? And then we're going to go up 200%, and that should bring us to $300. Oh, whoops. I put in percentage by accident. whoops. Alright, so 6, right? Value 1 is 100. We're going to go up 200%. Yep, $300. That is correct. PB ratio. Let's do that. So, Bank of America book value is 29.09, and back then it was, okay, 29.05, sorry. So first we're going to enter, 2. So now we're doing PB ratio, price to book ratio, and it's asking for the share price, so that's 27.25. Whoops. What did I just do? 27.25. Yeah, and 29.05 for the book value. That gives us a PB ratio of 0.9. That's pretty good. Sub 1, which is pretty decent for PB ratios. Price to no, that's not what I meant to put. So right here, what is a good PB ratio? Any value under 1 is considered a good PB. Yeah, so it was good in 2019, but let's see, what is it now? BAC P/B ratio 2022 1.31. What? Oh, right. Okay, wait, let's make sure that this checks out. P/B, sorry, book value of BAC 2022. Okay, it's just giving me the price to book value. I'm assuming this is accurate. You can see, right, April, okay, so 07/22 value, whatever. It's right. I mean, it's just division, so we know it's right, but yeah. Whew. Alright, well, I'm gonna learn how to web scrape, I think, maybe, we'll see. But I'm thinking of implementing this feature into the program that allows you to basically profile a company with all of the data and then print a transcript, right? So it'll make a file of like a transcript of all of it, or you can enter in all of the data, and then it'll automatically do the calculations and upload it to Google Spreadsheets. We'll see. That might be really hard for me, but we'll see. I'm really bad at web stuff, but yeah, bye. Video's going on almost an hour now, so thanks for watching.